Under the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement, countries have undertaken to implement the actions needed to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. Europe has opted for a more ambitious scenario, namely achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 in order to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. For road transport, this means that truck manufacturers will stop producing fossil fuel trucks by 2040. Indeed, as the operating life of a truck is around 10 years, this means that no more trucks emitting CO2 can be put on the market after 2040. How will this energy transition take place, and what alternatives to fossil fuels will we be able to use? Heavy vehicle manufacturers will gradually decarbonize, as we can see on this trajectory. There are vehicles that already run on alternative energies, but in order to cover all types of use, a number of technologies still need to be developed. Some manufacturers, such as the Volvo Group, have made commitments that 40% of vehicles sold will be decarbonized by 2030 and 100% in 2040. What type of energies are available for us today to power a truck? There are 4: diesel, gas, hydrogen, electricity. We'll review them one by one to see which will be the most effective in reducing CO2 emissions. Note that all the CO2 emission reduction figures quoted are calculated from cradle to grave. In other words, they take into account all the CO2 emitted from the production of energy and vehicles to the end of the vehicle's life. These calculations were made for a 16-ton vehicle. Let's start with today's most widely known fuel, diesel. We have 40 years of oil stocks on the planet, but we obviously don't want to use it, and to make the shift towards decarbonized energy. We currently have biodiesel, a fatty acid ester produced from vegetable oils such as rapeseed. In France, this is called B100. It cuts CO2 emissions by 65% compared to fossil diesel and could be an effective complement to the decarbonization of road freight transport. It is undoubtedly one of the cheapest solutions in the current decade. However, 2 factors restrict the use of biodiesel for road transport: the limited quantity of vegetable oils and the fact that production can cause deforestation, particularly in the case of palm oil, competition with other sectors, such as food. By 2040, at most 10% of trucks will probably use this type of fuel. We also have EDiesel, produced from renewable electricity, water, and CO2 from the air. It is ingenious and works well. It also cuts emissions by 65% compared to fossil diesel. But it requires massive investments that are still very uncertain. So, gas. This is methane gas, which exists in 2 forms: fossil natural gas, biogas produced by fermentation or gasification of organic matter. Fossil natural gas only cuts CO2 emissions by 2% compared to diesel, so it's not a viable option for decarbonization. Biomethane or biogas cuts CO2 emissions by 75% compared to diesel. However, the quantities of biogas are and will be limited. The transport industry will have to compete with other large consumers such as shipping. The price of biogas is also expected to rise in the coming decades as subsidies for its manufacture are likely to decrease. There are 2 additional points to take into consideration with biogas. Its combustion in an engine emits NOx, and it will therefore be banned in cities. Also, great care must be taken with the production, transport, and use of this biogas in order to minimize leakage. Unfortunately, it has a greenhouse effect 86 times greater than CO2 over 20 years. In view of this data, it is estimated that in 2040 no more than 10% of trucks will be running on this fuel, and it will probably only be used in long-distance trucks. Let's talk about hydrogen now. Did you know that there are several types of hydrogen? Grey, blue, and green. The hydrogen available today is called grey hydrogen. It is made from fossil methane and emits 14% more CO2 than fossil diesel. So it's not what we're going to use for mobility purpose. Blue hydrogen is the same as grey hydrogen, but with the CO2 captured and isolated. It reduces CO2 emissions by almost 60% compared to fossil diesel. Green hydrogen, which is produced from the electrolysis of renewable electricity, can cut CO2 emissions by 67%, again compared with fossil diesel. The shift from grey to blue or green hydrogen will require huge investments from energy companies. The European Hydrogen Association predicts a slow ramp-up to blue or green hydrogen between 2030 and 2050. In 2030, grey hydrogen will still be predominant in Europe. In addition, the road transport sector will be in competition with aviation and industry, which has no other solution for decarbonising. Wide-scale use of hydrogen for road transport is therefore not an option before the next decade. It is, however, investigated as an alternative to battery on certain applications, because it allows to store energy in a lighter and less expensive way, as well as to refuel in 10 to 20 minutes. To conclude this explanation on hydrogen, we should point out that technologies are still being studied. Fuel cell technology is currently the most developed. It converts the energy of a fuel, hydrogen, and an oxidizing agent, oxygen, into an energy, electricity, through redox reaction. An alternative is the combustion engine, which can use less pure hydrogen and requires less cooling. However, this has the drawback of emitting some NOx, and it requires a little more hydrogen than the fuel cell. For storage, two approaches are also under study, namely compressed hydrogen and liquid hydrogen. The latter has certain advantages in terms of handling, but will be more expensive to produce and require highly efficient equipment to prevent leaks. Now to our fourth and final energy, electricity. Electric engine technology already exists, and battery life is increasing. All types of use will be covered by the end of the decade. As with the previous energies we've just reviewed, it is important to estimate the extent of which electricity can reduce CO2 emissions from cradle to grave. Nicolas Meunier, Mobility Senior Consultant at Carbon4, can tell us more.
I prefer to speak about low-carbon electricity rather than decarbonized electricity, because every type of electricity production has its emissions linked to the building of the infrastructures, of the power plants, or the network. But then, in terms of energy sources, you have some low-carbon energy sources such as renewables or nuclear, and also some high-emissive energy sources linked to the fossil fuels, so that's coal, oil, or fossil gas. Today, the average European electricity mix is a bit less emissive than the world one. But it represents a great difference between the different European countries, with France, Sweden, or Switzerland who have nearly completely low-carbon electricity, and on the other hand, Serbia, Estonia, or Poland, who are still relies a lot on coal to produce the electricity. But for 2040, every European country has a policy to decarbonize its electricity mix. So we can expect that the average electricity emissions in Europe will be halved by 2040 compared to today.
Thank you, Nicolas. Let's have a look at the figures. Since electricity is not decarbonized at the same level in European countries, we can take two examples. German electricity reduces CO2 emissions by almost 50%, and France is closer to 80% today. In terms of cost, it will be cheaper to drive using electricity in 2030 in Europe. Although trucks remain expensive, customers gain in maintenance and energy costs. The switchover will take place from 2025 onwards for urban areas and a little before 2030 for long-distance traffic. In addition, many countries have decided to boost the energy transition by introducing public subventions for companies choosing to buy electric vehicles. Let's sum up the facts. The challenge we face collectively is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. This requires carbon neutrality by 2050, which means decarbonizing new vehicles put on the market by 2040. There are 4 energies available to achieve this. Marc Lejeune will help us to compare them for urban and long-distance use by 2030.
For city trucks, the combustion engine with either biofuels or e-fuels will be limited by the will of the cities to prohibit trucks emitting nitrogen oxides by the end of the decade. So we think this will be a reason why only hydrogen, zero-emission trucks, hydrogen or battery electric truck, will be allowed in cities by the end of the decade. So if we concentrate on those two solutions, hydrogen and battery electric trucks, there is an advantage to the battery electric trucks for the refill, because it refills at night at depot with a simple plug, and it uses the existing electricity network. On the other side, the hydrogen truck will require to have a refill station of hydrogen and also to have low carbon hydrogen, which does not exist much today. So that's a difficulty for the city hydrogen trucks. It's to find the fuel for it. And then when it comes to the economic, there is a significant advantage to battery electric truck compared to hydrogen truck, because it's hard to pay off the fuel cell because of the low mileage. And as a result, the total cost of ownership for the battery electric truck is much better than with the hydrogen trucks. So for this reason, we believe that by the end of this decade, for city applications, battery electric trucks will be the most of our sales. The situation is a bit different for long-haul truck because the NOx emission, the nitrogen oxide emissions, are less an issue outside of the cities where the long-haul trucks are operating. What will be limiting the combustion engine is more the availability of the energies, of the fuels. Biodiesel is limited today and will remain limited because of the biomass quantity and also the competition we will have with other sectors like aviations. And the same goes for biomethane. So biofuels will remain limited in quantities. When it comes to EDiesel, which could be a solution, it will require tremendous investments from the energy company that we don't see coming short term. And now we are in an emergency situation where we need to decarbonate. We cannot wait for that. So we don't count on EDiesel in our plans. So as a result, the combustion engines with biodiesel, biomethane, or EDiesel will be there for long-haul trucks, but it will be a limited share of the trucks, 10-20% maximum. And the bulk of the trucks, they will be either hydrogen or battery electric trucks. And here there is an advantage for the hydrogen truck when it comes to the refill, because it will have enough energy for 800 kilometers within its tanks, and it will not require a refill within the day. Meanwhile, the battery electric truck with 400 to 600 kilometer autonomy range will need, for some of its missions, to recharge quickly at lunch in a fast charging station. And that's possible. I think it will work, but it will be an additional operational constraints for the transporter that make the battery electric truck a little less convenient to use than the hydrogen truck. And finally, when it comes to the economic, there is, for now, there is a slight advantage to the battery electric truck compared to the hydrogen trucks if you look at TCO. With the data we have, but things will evolve, technology will evolve, so it's a bit early to say which one will be the predominant truck for long haul in 10 years from now.
To conclude, by 2040, we should be using the four energies in the following proportions: 0% of trucks using fossil diesel or natural gas, up to 20% of trucks using biofuels for the heaviest uses, long-haul heavy construction, and around 80% of trucks equipped either with batteries charged with electricity or with fuel cells powered by decarbonized hydrogen for the heaviest uses. The precise distribution between these two energies is unknown today. So, I hope this gives you a clearer picture of the energies available and how they can be used to decarbonize road transport by 2040.